come to a, we hope, brief aside where Alamennoyth and good Father Luitpold have decided that they want to slink off together and have a quick discussion about some of the crazier events that have very recently occurred. In particular, there's a certain shadow and its impact on everything that I think they'd like to get to grips with, but not necessarily with everyone else coming up with their own crazy theories on the side. They'd much rather consolidate their own thoughts first. So, that being the case, let's bring them all together on screen. Hey! We're going to begin this particular tale on the River Reik. Although we're now moving towards our next set of tales, actually. Each one of our episodes, each one of the books, I suppose, has got its own aside tales sections that's working towards it. The tales sections we're going to be doing for this entire road towards power behind the throne is going to be tales from, well, let's just say it's going to be from the past as we examine some of the things that brought our characters to where they are today. I'm not going to be announcing this too publicly. We'll just do it in a nice little side tales while we're here. For example, you might get to see when Yume first meets her fox. Or you might get to see Root Weaver.
He's like, who's Root Weaver?
So, that all said and done, we shall start by setting the scene. The Foot Shover, on the evening, having concluded all the, let's call it the business on the island. It's the kaiju fight! As Fox and Snake had gigantic fights on the island, and you watched as lots of presumably devout Sigmarites got absorbed by a dark magic spell. Totally cool. Totally fine. Luitpold has been through quite a set of experiences and is currently in a difficult place. He's hoping he's free of it all. He also is hoping that what's going to be like when you go to sleep tonight. Similarly, Alamennoyth is in an unfortunate place too. She's aware that somebody does not want the good lady Margreta to survive, to live, to get any help at all. Greta, who knows her quite well, they've been in the castle for a good day or so and in each other's company and apparently got on, has been talking to her, trying to calm her down, trying to convince her perhaps that Altdorf is not a good idea. That is an ongoing conversation, which we will be picking up in the next episode. She's currently perched high on the mast, overwatching the whole thing, lest anything go a little bit wrong. Greta has Luitpold, the baby. Sigismund, the baby. Too many names. Sigismund, the baby, all swaddled up and in her arms as she's discussing quietly at that near the stern of the vessel with, well, what do we call her? The Dark Wizard? Sure, let's go with that option. Dark Sorceress at the rear of your vessel. Someone who apparently was, until very recently, a completely legal and sanctioned witch. But now, very possibly won't be, assuming that all of her paperwork did indeed go up in smoke. Luitpold has been somewhat troubled, comes up on deck, and can see the good Lady Alamennoyth up above.
Or
See. Sense.
just.
I really need to get this sense thing down to pat. Can sense that Lady Alamennoyth
It's
is up
more,
above.
she's always a bit hazy to him anyway, isn't
You're
she?
right.
So he can,
It's
he can,
her. You require...
it's probably more he can hear her.
you require her. Yeah, her heartbeat giving her away.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you come in and you're like, oh, where is she? Where is she? Stop. The slosh of the water is almost enough to drown it out. Take some. It might actually require you to shout out because you can see him as he's coming up and he's just stopped and he's looking around.
Or he could just do what a normal person would do and say, "Has anyone seen Alamennoyth? I don't know. He's looking for me."
There's no one there.
There must be people.
They're all at the back of the boat. Barge is long barge, and they're all at the back. Big main mast up near the front, near the top of it. There's literally no one near the front of the barge. They're good, almost 15 yards away, down at the back, talking amongst themselves quietly.
I mean, if he can hear that she's not there, He will probably...
She's not talking.
Yeah.
The problem is you never know where she is.
She's always fucking talking.
But what I mean is, how on earth would she know he was looking for her?
Well, exactly.
Because
Right,
she
he
could
has
be
stopped.
in her. Yeah. Well, who are you looking for, Father?
You, actually.
Oh,
Have you
well,
got-
I'm up here.
Could you come down?
I could.
Would you come down?
I would. I shall, in fact.
Thank you.
Skip, as you make your way down the mast. The father doesn't have a broken arm.
Oh.
You've grown so used to him having a broken arm that him not having a broken arm is a surprise. He's not got it in a sling, he's not got it bound up. He doesn't have a broken arm. He does, however, have...
He also has all of his armour.
Yeah, which one presumes he's not wearing at the moment.
Yes, no,
We're
on big
currently on a
rubber.
barge.
Yeah.
But yes, he does. It's currently ensconced downstairs in his cabin.
I had got used to you with a broken arm.
Yeah. Me, sort of, too.
How does that even...
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about all of this. See if you can help me make sense of it.
Well, we can go to my cabin. Greta is on deck.
All right.
One of the great joys of Alamennoyth stroke Greta's cabin is that it has a large, comfortable bed, which is good for sitting on. Quite different to the hammocks that everyone else sort of leans on or sits on or lies in or whatever equivalent, or the hard edges of the barge, assuming that one's up on deck. It's comfortable and that's nice. There's also a shelf along the side where the crib currently stands open, sits. They even have a chair. Luxury!
This is
Don't
the
know you're
luxury.
born.
Actual luxury! In the corner, 3 candles sitting on the floor are burning away. Pardon?
Not 4.
Not 4. Not 4 candles, 3 candles. Sitting on the floor burning away, you can sense that they're there. The flickering of the flame
I don't think we
catching
should
your
leave
scent
candles on the floor unattended in a wooden barge.
frequently happens.
Wow.
Yeah, frequently.
Careless.
Because that's wise, isn't it?
It's a miracle that this boat hasn't caught fire.
Given who's in it, yes. So, that all being said, Alamennoyth, what are you doing?
Picking up the candles and putting them somewhere safe? No, I'm not.
They're ensconced in wax where
Oh, are they?
multiple candles of their type
Well,
have already burned
that's
down.
fair enough.
Yeah.
As long as they can't fall over. Should perch somewhere on the shelf, maybe, dangling her leg down. Have a seat. You may choose the bed or the chair.
Luitpold will blunder into the chair. Sit down.
Outside, the gentle swash of the River Reik passing by. You have absolutely no idea where you will arrive in the following morning. The geography of the Reik is, at best, loose within your mind. You just know if you keep on following it, you're going to hit the capital at some point.
I mean, he does now have Lower River Reik.
Oh, that helps. I shall retract. Your awareness of the geography of the Reik is, because of your Lower River Reik, pretty decent. You're aware that coming up soon will be...
He's got 2 advances in it.
pretty weak.
Yeah.
Meaning that you are aware you're going to hit Altdorf sometime
This
soon.
Wittgenstein's that way, Altdorf's that way.
Correct.
That's what he's like.
We're going downriver.
The father, for all he does have his blindfold on, looks relatively troubled. His eyebrows are somewhat knitted. Concern is etched upon his face. You reckon you've got human emotions down pat. You definitely haven't misread that.
Here's the question. Alamennoyth's got acute sight,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Does she notice that, for instance, Luitpold's scarring pattern might be different now?
Yes. Luitpold's scarring pattern is different now. He had black, almost fork lightning-like scars coming out from where his eyes had presumably been, burnt out or whatever he did to himself. And they're now positioned differently.
What happened to your eyes? The scars are different.
When I came back, I had my eyes for a short while. Half a bell, maybe less. I don't know. Time is... Shall I begin at the beginning?
I think you should.
Right. I don't... My theology does not, at least what I know of my theology, does not equip me with the answers to understand what happened to me. I'm hoping maybe your elven awareness of things might. So...
Knocking at the door, you barely even got
seriously?
to start talking, and someone's already
Who's
arrived.
there?
Greta sticks her head in and says, "You look rather troubled, so I brought a big bottle for you."
Oh, thank
passes
you.
it in.
Can I drink that? Will I want to drink
It's
it?
wine.
Have a bottle of wine.
Do you not like wine?
Not really.
She's fine. It's fine. She shuts the door.
It's fine, apparently.
On the other side, you can hear her saying, "All she did was complain. You think that she could have done something nicer? I brought her wine."
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you, Greta.
And a second voice says, "It seems that you spoke loudly enough." As you hear them tapping their way up the ladder onto the deck above.
So, when the vampire Julius was talking to us, you all, he said that he thought the place I had been was the Shadow Realm,
the Aincoin.
The Aincoin. I don't think that's right. I think he thought that because he was looking at my shadow. And that's why he was getting a sense of the Shadow Realm, because it was a shadow. I don't think I was in the Shadow Realm.
Well, I know a way we could test that.
You do?
Yes. I have a little cantrip that I occasionally use in both defensive and offensive ways. It's more commonly used offensively, but I have been... well, probably best you don't know about that yet.
I mean, now I absolutely have to know about that.
It will replace your senses. It will not send you physically to the Shadow Realm, but it will trick your senses into believing you are there. And if you have been there already, then it would be familiar, no?
How long for?
I mean, not long.
It's not long.
A minute or so?
I mean, time has no real meaning there, though.
Well, that is... I do not know if that is the case in the Anchor, and I believe time does have meaning there.
Well, I mean, that would answer the question then, because time had no
Well,
meaning.
I've never been there. It's just my gut belief. I do not know. I think we should do it.
Yeah, all right. I mean,
Give yourself a cool test.
it can't be worse than what's already happened.
All right.
Can it?
I shall...
Well, let's just see. Or am I going to freak out?
No, I
critical.
have to actually do it. Let myself get into the right frame of mind.
Yeah, 8 successes and a critical.
Sweet.
Blackout, blackout, hold them tight. Blackout, blackout, dim his
Put the
light.
bottle of wine on the floor. Grip the arms of the chair.
Whispers. Ultor. Fails.
Miscast.
It's shit out magic.
Wine turns to blood.
Head falls off. Explodes.
Oh, it's suspenseful. Oh, yay! 6 successes.
Oh, sweet.
Nice.
Did about as well as you
About as
possibly
well
could.
as I could do.
But please don't boost the duration.
You can hear her voice. It's the odd thing with Alamennoyth. Your senses barely catch her. All you get is the sounds that she makes. Where for others, you've got a deeper awareness of what's around you. Your sensations catch things, but for her, it's purely her voice. And then her voice almost shadows out near the end, tapers out into nothingness, as you feel for the briefest moment the coldest of touches upon your cheek.
Touch their cheek, soft and light. Whisper, Aldur, come dark night.
And your senses wink out. Gone. Blackness. Horrific. Difficulty 5. Holy shit. Cool test. What has she done to you?
Do I get any bonus for having critted that last one?
Yes, actually, I'll drop the. I think that's fair. I'll drop the difficulty all the way down to just 1.
4 successes.
Sweet. As your senses are gone, and you can almost feel around you. Oh, you can almost. Your senses aren't gone; they've just gone somewhere else. Like you can't sense the things that are actually around you. You're sensing something beyond. And you can see his hands rising up, his face squinting.
Interesting, because usually they actually
pass out.
Interesting.
As his reactions, he raises out. Nope, he hasn't collapsed. He hasn't in the slightest. He's still
probably
there.
because he's not panicking. Like the normals.
Up, and you can almost feel something go past you. You can almost hear something say, "It's back." He shakes, shivers. A slight freckle of ice cracks along the edge of one of his dark blue scars that can just be seen peeking out from underneath his blindfold. You're not sure how long that lasted. It was enough time for you to very much experience the creeps. And then suddenly, woof.
Force 9 on the creep scale.
You're back in the room. And the heat of the cabin hits you. You didn't realise how cold you felt. The sounds of the water, the creaking of the boat, the tension in the ropes. Her heartbeat, lubbing slowly in the distance. No, it's not distant. She's only about an arm, 2 arm reaches away. Make of that what you will.
I mean, that wasn't fun. And I did hear something say that I was back. But I don't think it was the same place. Maybe it was saying he's back, or it's back, because my shadow hasn't been there for a while. Because my shadow's been here.
But could you... So you don't think it was the same place?
Well,
but something said it's back, which suggests you have been there before.
Yeah, but doesn't your shadow go there? Isn't that if it's the shadow's realm? I don't know.
I don't. I mean, your shadow's just here.
You don't know.
It's here
I have
physically,
no idea.
but is it?
But spiritually.
There? Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't have your shadow. So
exactly.
You wouldn't be back.
No, but...
Because your shadow is a different part of your soul.
I would have been when I had my shadow. My shadow would have been there. But now my shadow's not there because my shadow's here. The metaphysical part of my shadow is in the material plane now.
It's beyond me.
Maybe. I think I was in one of the gods' hells.
Right.
That's where I think I was. It was awful. I can't tell you how awful it was.
Well, that should have been awful, what you just went through.
I mean, nothing like as bad as where I was. Nothing like as bad.
Well, what were the differences in...
Died so many times.
Of what?
Of being killed.
But by what? What
by
happened?
Violence, by drowning, by burning, by suffocating, by being crushed.
Oh, I see. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. So the shadow's description of where it was that. Oh, I see. That's not what your shadow said had happened.
No, near to where...
Your shadow described a place that was much more like...
Yeah.
Right, I see.
But near the Demon's Bowl, that was what it was like. But the further I got away from the Demon's Bowl, the less it was like that.
So you left the Demon's Bowl?
Yeah, so when it woke, when it was awake, I saw everything it saw. I was a passenger in my own shadow body. And the most infuriating thing was everything it did is what I would have done. It didn't...
Well, that's what shadows do.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't do anything I wouldn't have done, but it wasn't me making the decision to do it, even though it was the decision I would have made if it were me that was making the decision. And I cannot tell you how unsettling and infuriating that was.
But an interesting way to trick fate.
Also consider the
Noted.
shadow as it sat on the waves as you watched it. What form did it take?
When I watched the shadow on the waves, it wasn't exactly the pose that you were in, your hand on your hip, gesturing. It was actually, if it had not been so, it was funny. I actually did find it funny.
Interesting,
But
though,
creepy.
it may be having a similar issue. Not
So-
entirely in control of its own movements,
So
entirely in control of its own
Yes.
movements.
Interesting.
it was shaped by you.
And then what happened when it slept? Well, that's when I woke up. And initially, I was wherever I was. But I was in whatever realm I was in.
Oh, so you were in the realm of the gods or wherever
Or
you
the-
were for
the-
much longer.
Yeah, so every night, he slept and I awoke in that realm of torture and pain
Oh my
and
God.
awfulness.
That sounds
but
awful.
but there is a connection between those realms, right? The geography is not the same, but as he moved in this realm, I would awaken in a different place in that realm,
Interesting.
following his path, following wherever the reflection is of that place, or of this place in that place, or vice versa.
I mean, that would make sense from what my master told me of the Incan. When I wished to escape from the elven camp, he said, we can do it this way, or we can go through the Incan, but you won't like that. And the implication was that we would walk through the Incan to out of the camp. So there must have been some translation potentially going to happen.
But I think, as I say, I don't think it was the Incan. I mean, did demons live in the Incan?
Well, presumably, Ulgu. If you were to call a creature of Ulgu, then you would call it from the Incan, potentially. She knows about
Shadow
spells like
steeds
that.
and
Shadow
various creatures
steeds,
that can be
various
summoned through.
creatures.
Correct.
So,
Interesting.
yes. What is a demon but a spirit? But a demon but a spirit.
But there was like the blood and the fire. It just didn't. I don't know. I can't pretend to know, but I can tell you it didn't feel like I would imagine that would feel like, and it certainly didn't feel like that you just.
But that is what it felt like near the Demon's Bowl.
I mean, you don't know what it felt like. I mean, you could say yes or no and be 100% accurate.
You don't know.
Yeah. You just don't know.
You didn't experience it with
No.
the same.
With my material senses in the same way, because I was there differently. So that went on, and that's the other thing, is that time there had no real meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was an instant or it was an aeon, and
Well, that would make sense for the fact that you were not in the material realm. I think, I do not know, but I think the Aether has different, the non-material realms have different facets to them. But I do not know whether you would consider that the Incan was the Aether, but a specific part of the Aether that is tied to a certain entity, or whether the Incan and realms like that are something different again to the Aether in the material realm. I just do not know enough to be able to make any judgment in the matter. What I can tell you, if you're talking about a god's hell, then that is not my understanding of what the Aether is. To say a god's hell implies that a god also has another realm. The gods' realms just are the gods.
I will give you a good bit lore theology here. Accurate, actually. The hells, so to speak, are generally the realms of the realms of the divine, for want of a better description. The divine realms that are ruled over by a god that others don't particularly want to go to. For example, Cain's bloody hell, which is not the sort of place that most folk would like to summer in.
I mean, could that have been where he was?
I mean, it could have been a bit of it, but it seems almost small in comparison to many of the experiences that he sadly witnessed.
If my theory is correct, and Sigmar is somehow related to Ladriel, and Ladriel is related to the Incan, then you could have started in one realm and slipped into another. So you could have... You said fire and shadow?
I mean, it changed as I walked through it.
So you could have been moving from...
You name a horror, Alamennoyth, and I've experienced it. Or I've heard it. Or I've felt it.
What god does that sound like? Someone who would torture you endlessly. Erith Chyle, her hells are her place is just pure torture, and they supposedly come back as wraiths to fight on.
Mm. Lots of fighting.
Lots of fighting.
Lots of fighting. Mm. Often hopelessly outclassed. Lots of mocking this mere mortal that was trapped in a place that was so far beyond him. A lot of that.
It sounds to me a little like the Pale Queen.
Likely.
Yeah, she knows that from War Naggaroth. Yep. That's one of the very few things she does know. I've told you of my people are split by civil issues. Our pantheon is also split, and once long ago we worshipped as a whole, and now some of my people tend to worship.
Worship isn't the correct tone.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a word that she would prefer to use.
Is it a word she might use to explain it to the ignorant human who uses a word like worship? To be fair.
Yes.
Because she's trying to frame it for the monkey over here.
I'll take it. No, I'll take it.
The Azur that taught your people magic do not follow these gods. And I'm sure I've mentioned this to you, but perhaps I was not clear enough. Erith Chyle is the Pale Queen. She is the queen of the... She is the queen of one half of the gods. And some of my people believe that is a better place to send your enemies, and perhaps even yourself, than the ruinous powers. So when she who thirst come, they go to the Pale Queen's hells to be tortured for eternity, and sometimes return to this world as wraiths to fight the ruinous powers.
I would add, if you're keen to ensure your pronunciation is correct, Erith Chyle is how she pronounces it.
Erith Chyle.
Yeah. Small note, but she asked me to correct her pronunciations.
Yep, no, that's fair.
KH for H, and then E-A-L. Well, I-A-L. E-A-L in terms of pronunciation.
But if we are pronouncing it like that, then you would have to pronounce the god you named Cain as Chaine.
Makes him sound more like a scavenger.
Chaine. Well, interesting.
Yeah. That's interesting.
How did you escape?
So, Wittgenstein.
Mm-hmm. The place, the person.
The place. The thing, the spirit that was sent to trap and then was trapped, that the lady talked about, that then...
That Yume's parents had sent.
Yes, that Yume's spirit then consumed.
We don't know that, do we? We didn't know that.
I don't think so.
Because Yume's spirit consumed it.
Yeah.
Did you?
I'm assuming that's why it was so bloody big. We all saw it.
Well, I saw how big it.
I thought Luitpold did from what we said earlier. Maybe not.
Yeah, I'll let that go because I think that's good.
Oh,
that is Yume's fox.
Yeah,
and that's why it's good.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yume's fox was sacrificed to that great spirit. That is the great spirit.
No. That's what she thought she was doing, but her fox was far more powerful than that, and it consumed the other thing, and it has done something to it. I don't pretend to understand what. The reason I know that is the spirit that was consumed was trapped in the same place as I was. And it wasn't very happy, but it was, it told me how to come back.
And how do you come back?
well, I had to go to a place where the boundary was weaker.
Mm-hmm.
The Demon's Bowl was one of those places. Mm-hmm. The Great Circle was one of those places. So I had to go to the centre of the Great Circle.
Where supposedly the first was trapped.
I hadn't connected those dots. Well, that's alarming. Let's park that metaphysical concern over there for now. Park. That's not a word.
Stable.
Stable. Let's stable that over there.
You can park a coach.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or let's
He's
promenade
a city
in
boy.
the park. Yeah. Interesting. That is very unnerving. So I had to go there. It couldn't escape that way because it didn't have a physical body.
Yes, to go to.
Only someone in that place. No. I was like there in my physical body.
Oh, so it couldn't.
It didn't have
through.
a physical body. Its physical anchor to this realm. Is that the word it used? Realm? Plane?
Mm-hmm. Realm.
This realm. Its physical anchor to this realm was what was consumed, which meant it was stuck there. It couldn't come back because its physical bit had been eaten.
Oh, right.
Over here. I was there with my physical bit, so therefore I could get back. Problem was, I could only do it while he was asleep. The distances are different there. Although the geography is linked, it is different, but it was a long journey. How many nights I battled my way through to try and get there. And so close, and then he fucking woke up.
Well, and then you were back at the start again.
Yeah.
No, well, not strictly. You were in his head.
I was back in his head, and then I lived his day, and then he would fall asleep again, and I would awake somewhere else in that realm, and would have to start my journey again. And only the fact that I was a seer...
I see, because he was moving, so he was moving you in that realm.
Yeah. So it's only the fact that I was a seer that meant I was able to find my way where I was trying to go. Otherwise, I'd have been lost. I'd never have found it.
This is so far beyond me. I wish my master was here.
Right.
Were here.
But eventually I made it. Eventually I got there, and I came back to myself, and it was... I mean, if everything I've already said wasn't strange enough, it was so strange. I was there, my body was there, all of my stuff was there. I was naked, however. All of my stuff was spread out around me.
In the Great Circle?
In the centre of the Great Circle, and I had my eyes.
But why?
I don't know. And then around about half an hour later, or so it felt, it might have been longer, might have been less. They burnt again like they had before.
But you didn't initiate.
I didn't re-invoke the ritual or any of that kind of stuff. No, it happened. Like my body was resetting. I felt a pain in my arm, like a weakening, where the shadows was broken. It didn't break, but I felt a reflection of that break. I felt the pain. I felt the weakness for a moment. It's fine now, but...
Oh, for a moment. So perhaps it was the same. It has eyes, so you had eyes. I don't.
And to further confound things, I eventually came to my senses. It took a long time for me to get used to being able to touch things and hear things in the normal way, but eventually I did. And I donned my clothes and my armor, and I picked my gear up, and I knew where he was. I could feel him. But also, as I went towards him, when I slept, the same thing happened. I would see through his eyes for the day. And I would see everything that you were all doing, and then I'd be back to myself again.
You must have been sleeping.
Well, I assumed, I didn't really think about it. Everything was so strange. Remember, I am aware of day and night, but I don't see the light or the lack of light. So it was less obvious to me that the time didn't match. And it wasn't until that moment where I knew I had to be on that island, and I arrived on that island, and I crested that little ridge, and I saw it, and it saw me, and that was the only moment I realised that we were awake at the same time, and we must have been awake at the same time regularly.
So it didn't see through, it didn't know you were coming?
No, until it saw me.
Or perhaps when it slept, it also caught up.
Maybe, but you would have thought it would have... I don't know, taken some kind of precaution. it could have easily, if it knew I was coming, it could have easily warned you that there was some kind of demon taking its shape and stalking it. It could have spun a lie.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have done that. And you said it did everything you would have done.
Well, yeah,
It's true.
true.
I'll give you a little potential insight. You don't, strictly speaking, remember everything that happened on the other side. It's dreamlike.
Yeah.
One of probably the only reason why you're not a gibbering maniac. In that it's almost like it happened to someone else, although you know you experienced it and went through it all. It's a little bit like having had an operation. You know you went through it, and you can kind of imagine what actually happened, and indeed your imagination is pretty damn good at it, but only certain parts of it are sticking in your memory here. But maybe you only remember it because you're a seer. Maybe you only remember it because you've been granted something more. And when you slip off into, say, the realm of dreams, that doesn't cancel when it slips off into the realm of dreams, separated from your shadow, so to speak. Maybe it remembers nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it would probably have got as much of a shock as you did.
Yeah.
But for very different reasons.
Yeah.
You got a shock because it was up at the same time as you. You fully expected it to be asleep. And for you to be able to do something, you didn't know what, but something.
So I don't understand what changed when it saw you. It went from doing everything you would do to using Ulgu. You wouldn't do that. What happened then?
Well, if Ulgu is from the shadow realm and it's a shadow, maybe it was the Incarn that I started out in, and it's a demon, a shadow demon.
So you think your shadow is possessed?
Yeah.
You didn't indicate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought it was your shadow.
No, the bargain. The shadow spoke true.
Oh, you did make a bargain.
I had to make a bargain.
Right.
Although it transpires
bargain...
I didn't have to make a bargain. I had to go to find an entity in Wittgenstein that was trapped that could have told me how to get out, but there was no way for me to know that, or indeed any way for me to get to Wittgenstein without having made the bargain and the shadow going out to bring me to Wittgenstein.
Yes.
What I'm really worried about is what's going to happen tonight when I fall asleep. Am I still going to see what it sees?
Well, I don't know.
It's been having nightmares.
Good.
But its nightmares have been my struggles.
So it has been experiencing something of one.
I think so, but I think it doesn't remember, because it's not a seer.
Oh, I see.
You certainly remember when you were making your way to Wittgenstein, when you were sleeping as you were moving along.
So when it invoked Sigmar in your Hamlet, or you had that vision, you do think that was from Sigmar? As much as you know that anything you do is from Sigmar.
Yeah, that's the other big question that we haven't really had time to really talk about, is everything Julius said about the First and Sigmar and what that all means. The fact that the centre of the circle is where supposedly the First is, is an unfortunate corroborating detail.
But then there are masks within masks within masks, in that if my insight was correct, say it did come from Sigma, the vision, and there's not some other thing afoot, then I think my belief remains the same, that there were three options. Magnus was wrong or lying. Joros, when he takes Volans' form, can be scryed. Or Sigmar is Ladriel, and that is why we could see it. If Sigmar is Ladriel, then who's to say that story about the First is even true? We don't have any first-hand evidence that there was a First who did all these things, just like we don't have any first-hand evidence that Magnus walked through the flame. Well, no, we would have to have Magnus for it to be first-hand evidence.
And the second-hand evidence we have is that he didn't walk through the flame.
Exactly. So...
And the flame, I've been meaning to ask you, when I told you that Sigmar walked through the flame, you said oh, I'm very sorry. And then I never got to, this was a long time ago. I never really got to ask you why.
Well, amongst my people, we also have a flame. It is the flame that Inarion... It's not how I would say it, but that's how you say it, Inarion.
Inarion?
That's
exactly how you say it.
It's got more of a... Inarion. Inarion, the first Phoenix King, you must understand, I do not know these histories very well. I am but a child amongst my people now. Inarion wanted help when the gods had deserted us. And he walked through the flame to beseech aid from Azurian. Azurian of the bifurcated mask, the judge that sits above the queen of the gods and the king of the gods.
Is the king of the gods.
I thought there was like a queen and a king, and then he's the king over.
Nope. He is absolutely the king of all creation. That includes all the gods.
Okay.
All the gods. And there may be Aerith Kael. That was just simply a different piece of information you don't know.
Thanks. So Azurian, as the king of the gods, had commanded them all to leave this world. And Anarion walked through the flame of Azurian and communed with Azurian, beseeched his aid. And as a result, Azurian granted his aid as, I do not know what word you would use, I do not know, I wasn't there, as some kind of theophany?
Yeah, it's not a word you would even be
No,
close
I wouldn't
to
even
aware
know
of.
that word. Just, he gave him his strength. He was as...
Avatar might be a word.
Very Eastern word.
He was as of... It was as though he had... Anarion...
Keep it simple.
Possessed by the gods.
Possession.
Possessed by Azurian. So I thought when you told me that Sigma had walked through another flame, that flame was another one of our god's flames, and your mortal ancestor, Sigma, was possessed by another of our gods.
Have you any idea what god it would be?
Well, tell me of your flame.
I mean...
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
How did it feel? What did it sound like? Our flame is hot, for Azurian is the phoenix. He springs from the ashes in a great burning...
This one is cold. I mean, you've seen me invoke it. The silver flame that shoots out, that is a small reflection of it.
Right, it is cold. I'm taking a note here.
Like that's what I...
It's silver.
And that's what I invoked to burn out my eyes, to gain my sight. It was the flame of the silver flame that took my eyes and gifted me my sight. And if you think about that vision that was shared in Wittgenstein, like, do you remember the edges of it?
Mm-hmm.
There was silver flames and silver lightning there.
Mm-hmm.
Or white lightning. And yeah.
And so
I'll add a couple of extra details for you to make sure they're not lost. As far as not only you, but everyone is largely concerned, this is the holy flame of Ulrich, where Ulrich was said to have struck the top of the Fauschlein, the great mountain that sat at the very end of the Middle Mountains. Knocked off the top of where he struck, burst forth the flame. There are, however, different legends concerning this, as is often the case with divine legends. They take many different types. In another one, it was Bloody Blitzbeal, his great axe that swiped off the top. In another one, he was literally warring with Tal. They had a disagreement, in this case over Raya. It was very, very fundamental, basic. And in the tussle, the top of the mountain was knocked off, as you do. And indeed, the entirety of the Middle Mountains was nothing more than Tal being slammed into the ground, causing them to rise by Ulrich. The very formation of the empire is nothing more than the gods' tussles, so to speak. The great river Talabek was nothing more than an enormous dragon, where its body was struck down by Tal. Crash! There are as many stories about the formation of the Flame of Ulrich as almost there are orders and religious orders around the Ulrichsburg, the Fauschlag, the great rock that Middenheim is built upon. And you have heard in your time about 100, because it's one of the things that your order does. It protects the sacred flame of Ulrich. And a part of that is trying its very best to understand what it is. So part of your order's duty is to collect all the tales regarding Ulrich's flame. Where did it come from? What it's about? You've already collected a new one. It's very possible Magnus didn't pass through it. That would go down very well with the order, for example. They'd be like, yes, we want to hear that. We obviously don't believe it, but we definitely want to record that, place that down into the annals, and cut that all down to a quick bit of things you can say for certain. Ulrich touched that point, flame burst up. And before Ulrich touched that point, it was a mountain. It was a great rise that came out from the very end of the Middle Mountains. All the tales tend to take those basic details and repeat them in different ways.
And so by my reckoning then, when Sigmar died, the god that you worship, the god that Sigmar became, would simply be whatever god it had been before. Azurian was not changed because Inarian died. Azurian is still Azurian, but Inarian is now dead. We revere Inarian as a worthy ancestor and a mighty warrior, but we do not think he has become a god. Azurian is as Azurian was.
And so there's no lasting legacy of him?
Of Inarian?
Yeah.
Well, his children are his legacy.
And are they touched by the god?
Not that one. To any great degree.
Unfortunately.
Possibly, but...
It is more complicated than, unfortunately, it could be, because Inarian also drew a weapon of another god, Cain. And Inarian's line, they supposedly bear the curse of Cain, whatever that is.
Interesting. I only ask because lineage seems to be important within the cult of Sigmar in terms of indicating who is blessed and can invoke these things. But also, like, my sight or my senses, the closer people are, like Sigmar's heirs, right? People in the Reichland, I can sense them really clearly. The further away people are from, the darker they are to me. I almost don't see you, mate. That's all. Or you. Because you're not. Sigmar's blood doesn't run through you.
I mean, it just could be a kinship of soul. My master told me that every single mortal in the Empire was descended from Sigmar. Give or take. Some more directly.
Well, that would make sense as to why most humans I can see reasonably well. Whereas halflings, I see almost nothing. Dwarfs, I see almost nothing. And dwarfs are, good
close to Sigmar. In another way.
Close to Sigmar. Will you come with me, be my eyes?
Of course.
The shadowy, from what I remember, was building a shrine in the hold.
Yes, you did spend a lot of time in there. There were jokes.
Given recent revelations, might be good to check what that shrine actually is.
Of course. Yep. Did you do a roll? Were you wanting to say something? No? Okay, creepy.
God damn it!
You make your way out.
Mm-hmm.
You pass your way over, upstairs, out on the deck. On the deck at the very back, Skip is yawning inside the wheelhouse. The boat is pretty much almost in the centre of the Reik. It could pretty much go for a good 15 minutes and not hit anything. And he looks up and as you pass by. Over on the starboard side, Marguerite Wittgenstein and Trott are sitting down having a discussion. They look pretty happy to be in each other's company. You're going to need to uplift the slats, take them off so that you can go down into the hold itself, and that's generally a two-man job, one each side. Take off 2 or 3 of those and you can just take the rope ladder down. You've done this multiple times, or at least, yeah. Yeah, it's an uncomfortable thought, really. Undo that rope, let it roll down. One of the barge girls is sitting at the top, half asleep. Nothing to do. But it's her shift, it's night time, and she looks up and she just waves. You make your way down.
Alamennoyth's considering if what god could be connected. She doesn't have lore theology.
With
so
what?
With the flame, just
You're
mulling
right.
it over.
She doesn't have lore theology. You're going to need.
I can think of an obvious potential candidate, given what we've been talking about.
Of an elven god.
What's the other elven god we've been talking about?
Well, Ladriel.
One of the other elven god we've been talking about. The Pale Queen?
Yeah, the Pale Queen. I mean, potentially.
Flame for the king, flame for the queen. One's hot, one's cold.
But she's not the only queen, is she?
I mean, he doesn't know enough about
No.
elven theology, but just based on what you've said, that's where his mind would go. But
You're going to need some form of light to go down into the hold. You can get one of the lanterns that are hanging around.
Grab a lantern.
Grab one of those, go down.
sorry, I forget sometimes that you need light.
I do need light.
Well, that's horrific.
What is it?
It's made of flesh.
Oh my god.
A hammer made of bone and
Oh, that's
flesh.
disgusting.
It looks fine to you.
What is it?
It's made of flesh and bone. A hammer.
Bone and flesh.
Where did he get that from?
I have no idea.
Perfectly created, and where did it come from?
I have no memory of him. In my memory of it, it was all wood.
Mm-hmm.
That's not wood.
Whose flesh is it?
Well, it's the flesh of a tree. No, it's not.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Just a tree?
No, it's flesh and bone.
A
and wood.
human?
It's made of wood.
Oh.
You son of a bitch.
Yes, it's a tree. It's the flesh of a tree.
What, like the boat is?
No,
it's,
worse.
it's much fresher. There's still sap in it.
Yes, no, it's fresh.
It's almost bleeding.
It has just died.
I'm sorry for your loss. There.
Poor tree.
Yeah. Brief moment there of panic.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I was like, I don't remember chopping up bodies. Uh-oh.
No chopped up bodies.
What?
No, there were bodies, just wooden bodies.
Yeah. Her visceral reaction to
Yeah.
it was
So,
there was a spirit in this tree.
I'm very sorry. Is
dying.
Is there something we should do to
Actually dying.
appease the spirit, or
You can sense it.
I don't know what to do.
It's just bits of it. This is really beyond your ken, but you can sense it in there. And it's difficult not to think this was purposeful. This was not just some simple tree that had lost its spirit. This was a living tree. A tree that might even move. It's been hacked.
But so the tree might still be out there.
No,
But
it's dead.
it's
Its
dead.
spirit's here. This is what remains of it.
and Luitpold has no memory of how the shadow got its bits.
Oh, no, you purchased wood.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you purchased wood. He made
Where did tree spirits go when they
carefully went over to a merchant, went through it. You chose the bits of wood that you thought were best. That doesn't necessarily mean it was seen with the same eyes that you were.
It is. The spirit is here. It is suffering. It is still alive, but it is dying.
So
Maybe Marguerite will know. She did things with spirits.
maybe, yeah.
I will get her.
Okay.
Runs upstairs. My lady.
She, Marguerite, looks up and says, "Yes,
Can you help me?
it
Please.
depends what you need."
I need
And
help
Greta says, "It's not wine."
to free a spirit, to let it move on.
Tut, tut. rolls her eyes. Free a spirit? I'm sorry, I don't think I'll be able to do much. I could torture it for you. I could hurt it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to free it for you. That's really not my domain.
Will you come and look at it at least?
Yes, she says, I suppose I can. What am I going to be looking at? Do I want to see this? It's hard to believe that someone who has been in control of everything she has been in control of is concerned about what she may be seeing.
I think you will be able to bear it.
As she says, well, she dusts down her skirts and looks down into the darkness where your lanterns are and the father's down there. Down here, this rope ladder. I think I'm going to test to do this. This is not really...
Leopold, help the lady down.
Yes, you need help.
Of course.
She half falls, stumbles as you catch her.
He's pretty tall.
With my left arm.
It's not broken.
As she comes down and says, what exactly am I looking at?
This hammer.
A shrine.
Yes, it is a spirit. A spirit of a tree, and it is trapped here. This is beyond you. I see that now.
There are stereotypes, stories that one hears concerning your people. This appears to be a perfect example of it. I have no idea upon which you're referencing here, or what you're referencing, or even it appears to me to be a shrine.
Yes, but the wood was taken from a tree with a spirit, a soul, a mind.
Right.
And its spirit lingers and is trapped here. Because its housing has been hacked. It is like a human ghost.
Well then, I suppose, what is the equivalent of burying? And the rites of law?
I do not know for a tree. Well, I mean, just I don't know.
It's well beyond her ken.
I do not know.
She is not the most educated of elves. I mean, certain aspects of just her basic culture.
Would destroying what's left of its body free the spirit?
I don't know.
And then, of course, you have a completely different issue. Which, I'm not well placed to organise, and that is, would one want to desecrate a shrine?
It's not been properly consecrated.
Right, then. It's just the bits of a shrine. I don't know, I'm sorry to say.
It was trying to consecrate it.
Greta's looking down from above as she goes, I just throw it out. Calling down to the hole. Just pick up the bits and throw it out over into the water. Let the spirits of the water deal with it. Let the grandfather Reik take it in. Perhaps he can do something. It's quite beyond us. And it's not like we've got a handy little god that we can drop it off with in a shrine and say, oh, God of the wood, please look after this. I don't know any of the local deities. One of them might do it, but they also might be antagonistic to it. Who can say? At least you know the river will sweep it away somewhere. Hopefully nice. As down below she says, and quite far from us. Well, yes, I didn't want to say that bit out loud, but it would also be quite far from us. It seems to be a better option than just letting it fester. What if it were to die and rise up as some sort of undead wood corpse? That sounds terrible.
Or infect the boat.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of that. I would suggest fling it overboard. That's what I'd suggest.
I mean, that does seem sensible to me. Does it seem sensible to you?
I do not know what else we could do.
Right, fling it overboard plan then.
I'm willing to make a prayer, but I don't know if it'll be appropriate.
I think some sort of prayer will need to be
you
done.
You can pray to Grandfather Reich. Just because you're a Sigmarite does not mean you cannot
I know.
pray to
I was more meaning if the spirit was somehow more attuned to your people.
No, remember in the book it said that Grandfather Reich was the father of the spirit that stayed behind, the spirit of the water.
Yep.
The spirit of the water and the spirit of the trees, they would have
close.
a kinship. Yes, no, Grandfather Reich is perfect. He will have a kinship with the spirit and may even be able to take it where it needs to go.
So let's do ourselves a pray test to see how well our little sermon to Grandfather Reich.
It's a pass.
I guess that was not the best pass.
0-5.
It could have been worse.
But because of abiding faith, that's one success level.
Perfect. Let's imagine ourselves at the side of the foot shover, looking
Just
over
imagine
the
him
edge.
really awkwardly, like, praying over a dead tree and being like...
I mean, under the circumstances, I think he should be delighted with one success.
A big roll of planks and bits of wood, some of which have been crudely fashioned into
So it's not
hammer.
even... I was kind of imagining it was actually just literally bits of sapling bent round or whatever. No, it's actually...
It's actually wood he
carpented
bought
wood.
from a
It
lumber
absolutely
merchant.
is.
Wow.
And with a clatter and a clunk, they get rolled off the arms. They splash down into the water as Alamennoyth looks down somberly at the logs.
Wait,
Greta sits there with what can only be described as what looks like a slightly amused face.
You meant to also make an offering to Grandfather Reik, aren't you?
You are supposed to make an offering to Grandfather
I
Reik.
will
Gold
make-
crown.
Oh.
Gold crown, splash.
This is important to you.
So this is one of those points that's worth bringing up. Each one of the gods have got their own preferred
Just like
offerings and sacrifices. Every single god has got their own preferences. And indeed, tossing coins into the Reik is something that good old Grandfather Reik very much approves of. A full gold crown.
It's not coins Grandfather Reik likes, it's gold, isn't it? Yeah, but just...
I point at the
no,
gold
but
crown.
specifically gold. Yeah.
Ping! Splash. As the logs float off. You can tell that the man is a dedicated priest. He knows how to look solemn and somber, even when internally he's like, what the fuck? Well, you know, the logs are floating away.
It's important to her.
Yeah, and he's going to... Is the ceremony over now?
Largely, yes.
One of the things I learned when I was trapped there was anything with any... I don't really understand it, and again, maybe your elven metaphysics knows more about this than me, but about the different parts of the soul. There's clearly the body, there's the shadow, there's the soul, whatever that is. But one of the things I realized is that you only need to have just one little bit of the soul is enough for you to be sentient, for you to be aware. And that's why I see now the spirit means so much to you, because I understand in a way that I didn't before, that it really is aware, it really is sentient. And I didn't appreciate that before, but I do now.
Agreed. Sitting off at the edge.
Alamennoyth is like...
Agreed.
Metaphysics don't even know the word.
Who's sitting at the
But you do a
back,
very
She'll
good job.
just-
You do a
she'll
very good
just
job of looking clever. So
Yeah, she's
therefore,
just going to nod.
cross-legged, her bum on a winch, looks over and says, that's quite correct. The thing that astounded me most, he says, was finding out that there was a great soul attached to, of all things, a stone that we happened to find in our gardens. Nothing more, nothing less. It was just simply a stone. We had recently, Julius and I, who had just, paid us a visit, not long after he told us that there had been an awakening over in the east. And he told me that he had a new method of determining the spiritual depth of material objects, and how magical objects, for example, could always have great magical depth, so to speak. And we found a stone, a simple stone. That stone contained the soul of something extraordinary in the beyond. This stone was the physical manifestation of it, to which we had quite the debate that evening as to exactly what the soul is, and how all of us have different sizes of souls. Those of us who can use magic have very bright, flaring souls. That's why your cult in particular, sir, is particularly concerned with witches, because they are much more appetizing, much more bright for demons. They can see them, they come to them, and sometimes they will attempt to possess them because they are aware of them. And it made me start considering what lies beyond. What are these souls that wander around? And realizing that they are nothing more than things that are strung together in this loose network, this web, and that my physical body here has a little connection through to a relatively large soul. I found that fascinating, but the realization that there was a relatively large soul, some form of demon or spirit, and it was housed with its material component in just a tiny rock, was remarkable to me. I had considered that if it was a great demon and there was a physical component, that it might be a mountain or a great lake, or perhaps that's what gods were when they became gods of lakes and similar. Apparently that wasn't the case. Just the stone. So I put it in my room in the mantelpiece, and it's not there anymore.
And is that what you were saying just now, that when I said to you that trees had spirits, you thought I just meant they had life?
No, I mean, like, what you spoke of as spirits, I didn't really understand what were thinking, feeling creatures. But having, spoken to quite a few of them, most of whom were awful, but one of whom helped me get back to the real world, I have a new awareness of what that means, I suppose.
And I have heard it say that when there is a quickening, perhaps Dr. Flaster will know of the physical impact of this. So when a human is bearing a child, I do not know if it is the same, but when you start the process of having a child, of pregnancy, there is no soul attached to that thing. And
an interesting way of...
Well, I do not know what to call it if there is no soul.
I can tell you what our research showed.
Oh, yes, please.
Because we have been investigating this to some degree, actually. And that there was the traditional quickening as it was understood by the midwives, which was when they could feel the child moving within. But that there was a first quickening when the soul first arrives, and it was an inconsistent moment.
Yes, that is what I am talking about, that the soul arrives, and it may not, the mother would not know, a midwife would not be able to tell, but something happens.
I could tell.
But someone should be able to tell. My people can tell it more easily. They will know if a pregnant woman has quickened or not, if they are that way magically inclined. I cannot tell.
It's a fascinating process, but it is, unfortunately, something that is ill, at least from my own knowledge, poorly studied, let's say, because of its difficult nature.
Yes, but and what I was told was that when a human becomes pregnant, they gather soul stuff from the aether that is not in an existing shape. But there are some creatures who, when they become pregnant, they would take soul stuff that is of an existing shape, that once that person's body had died, would then go on existing in the aether. Whereas when a human's body dies, the soul stuff fritters away again. That is why your people are so keen to explore necromancy or...
I think that sounds like a convenient lie.
I do not know if it is true, but that is what I was told.
Well, I'm quite aware that reincarnation as a concept is not a lie. Now, I've read more than enough text to be aware that there are methods of returning a soul to a body, and that there are practices in the East where they do this. They purposely find themselves in a position where they can return the soul of a departed one to the body. The soul, however, has to have a method, as far as one can. You have to do something to ensure that that soul does not pass on in a way that means it cannot return.
Exactly.
And that is their religious observances.
Yes, and so they do something to make sure that the soul stays cohesive.
Greta says, I told you.
Otherwise it fritters.
She says, yes, you did, I'll admit.
What did you tell her, Greta?
Greta smiles. That she would be intellectually stimulated.
I see.
Right. As she, Greta continues folding her arms. Yes, well, yeah, yes.
I know a priest.
Mm-hmm. I would hope so.
I know several priests, but one priest in particular who believes that Sigmar has been reborn already. That somewhere in the Empire there is a child that bears the soul of Sigmar.
Fascinating, he says.
We just missed him in Bergenhausen.
The priest or the child?
The priest.
I find that particularly fascinating. It is something that I would have said not more than maybe 10 years ago was absolute nonsense until I considered that stone. How could the essence of what is effectively a god be housed inside something so mundane. And I would have said that no god could possibly be reborn or born at all without being very clearly divine. We would all see. There are those who manifest divine powers, and they are very rarely discreet.
Glowing boy coughs in the
But
corner.
now, when one considers that rock, when one considers that as a material component of something consistently enormous on the other side, whatever it may or may not be, one must think that it's possible for a god to do the same. Is that not what Myrmidia did when she manifested here?
Yes, and it is my belief that what the gods were forbidden from doing was something fundamentally different to that. It was coming here. It was like before there was no barrier between the aether and the material realm. And so the gods did not have, say that large spirit you had a stone and a spirit. There was no distinction. So the god would be here in all its power and glory. And then something changed, and the king of the gods said, you must never do that anymore. And to all intents and purposes, there is now a barrier, and that barrier is what keeps the ruinous powers away. But it also must, by definition, keep every other god away. I do not know what
Surely
it is
it must be that.
I do not know what the vortex is.
She raises an eyebrow. You do not know what the vortex is? She looks over at Greta. Greta shrugs. How can you not know what the vortex is?
Well, explain it to me. Perhaps I will know it by another name.
Perhaps. Maybe, she says. Are you sure? This is a creation of the elves. Well, I have many treaties on it.
Black people are widely spread. I would not expect you to know the intimate details of the wall that the Cathaeans have constructed.
Well, I'm quite aware of them. The dragons that put them in place, yes.
Most people in the Reik
Most
are not,
people
I think,
in the Reik would not be. You are clearly a learned scholar who has had access to much. I'm only 52.
Oh, right. So there is a vortex in a distant land by the name of Althuan.
I know where else it is.
And it sits at the very heart of these islands, elven kingdoms. And it was created in ages past to drain the fell power of demons and magic from the earth. From the very air, from the sky, and from the heavens. And this vortex is real. I have travelled, not extensively.
After the time of Inarion? During the time of Inarion?
Well, I have read some elven texts. This would be after. Indeed, he was against the idea, I believe.
In our stories, the gods had already been forbidden from walking amongst their children.
Yes, but that does not mean they couldn't do it.
Oh, I see. Yes. And the vortex perhaps enforces that rule.
Quite. It would suggest that there was a different nature of reality before that, and that reality itself has gone through a reshaping
I
by
think
extracting all of the magic.
I believe that the ruinous powers were barred by Azurian, and the other gods were told not to come and were able to choose one way or another. So perhaps
a prison.
Yes.
Well, this is fascinating. I read a treatise by, he was a den father in the Temple of Ulrich in Talapine, approximately 1,000 years ago. And he was of the opinion that Ulrich had bound the ruinous powers behind great gates of steel that could not be passed, steel wrapped with silver, that could not be passed by any attempts from them to shake their cage. But when they shook their cage, all the magic rose in the world. But they only had enough strength to shake their cage every once in a while. But when they did, the great emergence of magic occurred, and the gods themselves might even waken. I should like to say that if this were the case, that is the only way that I can easily justify what I saw today.
The great fenworm.
They do not grow to that size.
No, they do not. I agree. I was going to say to you, Luitpold, that I think that is one of the signs of the end of an age. I do not know if it was you or the shadow, but I had... You knew that I had...
Well, I know everything the shadow knows.
Yes, but I cannot remember if it was before that we discussed that the end times is the wrong way to look at it.
That it's a...
That it is cyclical until it is not.
Until it's not.
If they broke free of their cage.
Ranadandra?
Ranadandra.
I have not heard of this term.
It is if the Neuronus powers were to shake their cage and actually get free, that is when the other gods
When they break the cage.
would be able to walk once more, but everything would be ended.
Well, that is fascinating.
Do you think a cage of silver, like all the myths about Ulrich's flame, Ulrich's silver flame, are that he somehow touched it, but it's always to do with battle or conflict? Could that flame be like a byproduct of that, of some war amongst the gods?
There was a war amongst the gods in many of the texts that I have read. A great war that happened
Yes.
long ago.
That is why
Brother turned against sister, sister turned against brother.
That is why Azurian had to stop them, because their war had become so...
Azurian, I don't know.
Azurian is the king of the gods. Like
Ulrich.
your Ulrich, but to
Or
us...
Tal.
No, not like Tal.
Well, Tal is king of the gods now.
Yes, but Tal is more like with the horns.
According to her, it is.
According to
Do yourself the
his
theology
theology?
test.
Yeah, two successes.
It's a title that is as slippery as the
That was kind of what he
Talabek River is curvy.
I mean,
that
he'd have thought Ulrich, but he spent a lot of time in Middenheim, so that's probably why he thought Ulrich.
he has, well, indeed, and up in Middenheim, he is generally perceived as the king of the gods.
And that's why he...
But if you go over to Talabheim, he's the king of the gods.
And also, like, to Alamennoyth, Tal and Raya kind of sound like Isha and Kurnos, right?
Yeah.
Who are a king and queen
Correct.
themselves. I would say, so to me, Tal and Raya are the equivalent of my horned god, Kurnos, and his bride, Isha. Isha was the one who wept over her children not being able to see them. And you could view Azurian as the emperor, the overseer, the
High King.
high king.
High King. That's interesting. Well, I've read many tales. I study a great deal. The tales of the divine particularly interest me. I have read many. They're mostly contradictory. But I do enjoy them because, as you were perhaps suggesting, there is often a certain truth that lies behind them.
I'm working on something that I bought. It is a seasonal calendar, and I note that your star signs, the star signs that you call certain things, they go along with our gods, and from that you can deduce that there may be some crossovers that say Tal would be Kronos.
Well, how fascinating. She says, I've not seen this at all. As Greta sits off the side, looking smug. Saying nothing, just looking smug.
At some point, possibly not right now as the hour is advancing, I would love to hear any stories you have relating to the Flame of Ulrich. In particular, part of my order's responsibilities is to collect stories relating to the flame.
She says, well, I've heard many, but I'm interested in your thought that it might be somehow related to war. I had read an interesting story. Julius brought it to me. He had taken it from his, I don't wish to call him master's libraries, because I don't like the connotations, but it is a term that he has used on previous occasions. And apparently the story comes from, of all places, Araby, and it references the flame of Middenheim, which is distant, very distant. And he was of the opinion it spoke to perhaps a truer version of the story because it had had less influence placed upon it. Fewer instances of editing because of the desire to have their god be perceived in a particular front. And you might not like the sound of this, but it did suggest that Ulrich, the great frost king of the north, was a twin with a god called Slanter. Lore theology test. It's either going to have to be very good or...
It's critical!
Oh, just what you needed too! Because it had to be a critical.
Only 6 successes overall, but a critical.
Still, Slanter. Huh. Chaos God. Twin to Ulrich. Slanter you'd heard of as a name that had been used frequently by those from the north. A name that had been attached to various individuals, a banner that had been flown at different times, a god of extreme excess, a ruinous power that sought the end of the world, hedonism, going too far in all things, in a quest for true perfection that the material realm can never achieve. And because the material realm can never achieve it, you must move to a realm where perfection can be achieved. And the only way you can do that is to move beyond the physical. The physical realm is a limiter. And you read that once, and you closed that book,
Put it
and
away.
realised that perhaps you read a bit too much. But hearing this, an odd tale from somewhere else, brings it all back swimming to your mind. And you can almost see the page in front of you, those letters perfectly placed inside not just that book, but your mind.
But the worst thing about that is the truth that rings with it, because that's almost exactly the revelation that he got about his visions and about the physical world being fundamentally imperfect.
And why I find this one particularly interesting.
Because that's a god of the ruinous powers.
Well, that I didn't know. I was going to suggest, well, that is an interesting connotation, if that is the case. Well, what I find particularly interesting is that it said that after many issues that the pair of them had, they were detailed in this tome, which I sadly do not remember particularly well, but in his dissatisfaction with her, he bound her away in flame and silver.
Interesting.
It would be a curious reading.
But if
it is
Better
true
says,
that...
Did I just hear that you said that the holy flame of Margaret, she says, might contain a dark god to make up of the north?
but
What
perhaps
is place?
but
What is place? It
Yeah.
means nothing.
But-
That is just where it's weakest in the north. If anything, you would just assume then that Middenheim would be where it's strongest. Which, if anything, means it would be a source of attack. The dark gods. Such would be their desire to destroy that.
Perhaps you must look in the histories of your order.
but I intend to.
What
Perhaps you
did-
should look into the histories of your king.
Well,
Who's to say what they see when they go through that flame?
absolutely. If Ulrich is the king of the gods, and Azurian is his counterpart, then that suggests Azurian had a twin. The ruinous powers...
There's no such thing. It just simply suggests that perhaps a god watches over the cages. I think you're making a supposition too far. It would, to me, suggest that Ulrich holds the key to that cage and does not let his sister out. And it also suggests that Azurian holds a key to a different cage and does not let whatever lies within out.
Or potentially both flames are connected to the same cage and they're just different
Possibly,
openings,
yes.
different locks.
I think they are all potential theories. Fascinating, don't you think? She says, leaning in, her eyes gleaming slightly.
But all I was going to say was, and to my people, although the ruinous powers now are the ruinous powers, initially they were just other gods who disagreed with the gods. That's why there was a war among the gods, because the ruinous powers believed that something had to happen to the physical world, and the other gods disagreed, and they fought.
This one was in pursuit of perfection, which is impossible in the physical world. So that's why the physical world needs to go.
I can see that is how it could be construed, but
Well, that's how it was in the story.
In the story, but for a god, what does that mean?
Who knows? He says, who's to say that it's not just part of a rock? Perhaps this flame is nothing more than its manifest part here. Maybe things aren't what they appear to be or what our legends claim. It's one of the things that particularly excites and interests me concerning legends.
It does make me wonder about... How much do you know about my people? Do you know about
I've read some books.
the ones further to the west? In Nagaroth?
I've never heard of it.
Right. Well...
Not that I can recall, anyway. Some of my texts were translations of translations, so you can never be sure if what you have read is what you would perhaps suggest to me.
Well, it suggests that if that were to be true, then the Phoenix King could be corrupt.
Or alternatively, the opposite, filled with fell purpose, aware of knowledge that no one else knows. It could be either.
Well, exactly. I'm saying that it
But these are just suppositions.
Yes.
They're the loosest of theories, and they mean very little.
Yes, but there was one who walked through the flame and was refused, or refused it himself. He might know.
Well, can you ask him?
He is very far from here, and he does not take visitors for tea.
That's certainly one way of putting it.
What about wine? Does he take visitors for wine?
I have mentioned him. He is my uncle.
I'd forgotten about that.
She says, well, that... Excuse me, just bring by. That sounds like a very good thing. Surely that must be a good way for us to, I don't know, send him a letter at least. Greta. Greta's like this. I know you're talking about. There's going to be no letters. I mean, how do you know about this? She says, well, we trade with them. She says, we trade with them over in Estalia. They're very good traders. She says.
One thing's for sure, I am very much looking forward to being in the presence of the flame now that my vision is somewhat altered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm going to see this time.
On that note, I think you should have a look at the rune fan. Oh no, we're in front of what's her name? The sword.
Oh, yes, to see if I see what
Just to see.
he saw.
What sword? She says.
The sword.
The one you wear on your back all the time.
Yeah, the massive sword that's really hard to miss. Yeah, that one.
All wrapped up and bound in cloth.
Maybe in case I do react the way he reacted, we should maybe do this. What's in our hold just now?
Wool. No, grain.
Grain. No, it's grain just now, correct. Lots of grain and a dismantled shrine.
So, but the grain is relatively soft, right? If I'm going to be flung into something, better to be flung into grain than wood or overboard.
It's certainly better to be flung down a corridor or into grain than overboard.
We should maybe make like a like a bowl of grain for me to, just in case. Right?
Greta says, are you really sure you want to touch it?
I don't want to draw it. But you weren't there with us before.
No, I've heard about it.
No, but he didn't. Luitpold's
she goes, so exactly what is it? And why would it be such a concern?
Well,
we don't know what it is.
And when I touched it before, although that wasn't me per se, although it was me, but it wasn't me. But I got a vision of an ancestor. I told you that I forgot the name again. Helga. It was my ancestor.
You mentioned,
and I got a vision of her and this weapon, but it flung me bodily across the room, getting the vision. And every time I touched it, it knocked me into a reverie.
Well, one is fascinated as to exactly what it is. Why would it fling you across the room? What sort of blade does such a thing? It seems counterproductive.
A magic
to its
one.
Yeah.
Yes, but its point presumably is to draw blood.
But I think perhaps it wasn't the blade that was flinging me. I think perhaps it was my connection with Helga and the revulsion she felt for the blade.
And you wish to experience this again? I approve.
There's also, and you'll kind of, like I carry Helga's bones,
You don't know they're Helga's, remember?
Well, that's right, but I presume they're Helga's bones. They might be Arnold's bones.
They might be.
But I'm reasonably confident they're Helga's bones and not Arnold's bones.
Is it not odd to consider that that may be the bones of your ancestor and mine?
Well, yeah.
Odd.
Indeed. And that they helped me focus my oracular abilities.
Anyone in the group that you said you see Reiklanders more clearly. So you see Gerhard more clearly than Birdie.
Yes.
Yes.
You see Magritte, is that right?
Magritte.
Magritte more clearly than... So Greta, Magritte, and Gerhard, you see more clearly than Birdie.
Yes.
Right. But between Gerhard, or between Greta and Magritte, do you see one particularly? No, no difference.
And Gerhard the same. Yeah.
Interesting.
How does he look to himself?
He doesn't.
He can't sense
he
himself.
feels. He doesn't.
Yeah, but he doesn't feel like when he looks at another blessed priest, they kind of glow to his Sigmar sense.
Yeah, he doesn't have any of that.
Doesn't have any of that.
No,
because he's within the calls coming within
like
the
being in a
house.
first-person shooter and they haven't bothered programming your body.
Yeah.
And
damn those lazy programmers.
Yeah, God damn those lazy programmers. Well, I should like to oversee this. I should also like to see the blade, if you do not mind.
Should we go down it in the hold just to, minimise the risk of collateral damage?
Well, I'm fascinated as to why you should be so concerned.
Well, whenever a human being, like not an elf, has drawn the blade...
They have...
Is it an elven blade?
No.
Well, I am curious.
Are we out of earshot of Blue Tilda? Let's go down. Let's go down so we can talk. So I don't want Blue Tilda.
Greta says, I'm going to sit up here and
please.
look down from above. I am not coming into that hold.
Wise.
She says, I've heard quite a lot, but I wouldn't mind watching, she says.
What we should do is, if anyone is going to draw it, we should tie you up so you can only draw it and not immediately charge someone. Every time a human has drawn it, to a lesser or greater extent, they have turned on their fellows.
Excuse me, Father, could you help me down?
Certainly.
She needs to roll. Yep, she needs help.
Do I need to roll? Or?
There's not a lot of weight to her.
And he's tall.
You're tall
help her down by her waist because you're so tall. Then pull her down. Thank you. She'll say, well, can we see it?
Right.
God,
She'll take it off first and just show it in the unwrap it. So she's not
I
drawing
hope this isn't
it.
the moment where Alamennoyth turns.
No, she's not drawing it at the moment. She's literally just saying
unwrapping it.
So you can see the scabbard. Here it is.
Dwarven manufacture.
Yes.
And fine dwarven manufacture.
Its name is Barakul.
Do you know what that means?
Unyielding wall.
Thank you. I have it written in my memory.
Unyielding wall.
Unyielding wall.
Are there any runes on the blade itself?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a rune blade.
Yes. It's a big rune blade.
And you are uncertain of its manufacture?
Just drawing it like that's fine, right?
You don't know. Every time you go swing,
every time I've gone swing, I've been fine.
I mean, it bears one rune.
I have got pictures. Hang on.
We'll have to go away and come back because you've not got it with you.
Yeah, she'll run and get there.
I mean, I can also just tell her.
Yes, but I've got pictures.
It bears while she's getting the pictures, it bears the Master Rune of Alaric the Mad.
No forge from the Roleplaying. Oh, this is quite the blade. Are you certain it was he that made it?
As certain as we can be.
She'll show her.
Yeah.
Her picture.
That's the Master of Scarf Blackhammer.
It's going in my dictionary.
Which one's the Scalf Blackhammer one?
The Master Rune of Alaric the Mad is the square spiral.
Mm-hmm.
So Scalf Blackhammer is the triangle with 2 points
They're
coming
the
off it.
runes and the rune fangs.
What does the Master Rune of Scalf Blackhammer do? Do you know?
I'm uncertain. I just know it for seeing it. I have images of all the rune fangs. I had images of all the rune fangs. I no longer do.
Did they Oh, did they change?
Change? No.
There's I was discussing with my mentor, Sister Abercorn, about there are stories about how the Runefangs were different shapes once. And
I have heard no such thing.
over time they changed, the same being
I've
true
only
of-
ever seen Gory Drengaz, is that his name?
Yeah.
Beast Slayer. It's the only one I've seen.
there's similar stories about Galmaraz.
Or changing form. I've heard no such thing either.
On the last Skaranorek temple, there is, in the stone, which we think is not the stone, we think is a
Shaggoth.
Shaggoth, not a Shoggoth. Shaggoth. There's the imprint of a hammer. It does not match the shape of the hammer that is wielded by the Emperor.
Perhaps he wielded a different hammer and the stories have been conflated. Who can
Perhaps.
say? It was a very, very long time ago. The only way to be certain would be to go to one of the dwarven holds. Close by, do they still stand? So that would be, I don't know the holds frightfully well.
Well, there is a
Black
hold
Mountains?
that I have written down somewhere in my memory.
Or is that the World's Edge? I can never remember where one begins and the other ends. No, it's Black Mountains, isn't it? And that would be there's a hold on a lake down there. That hold would probably, that's very close to the last Skaranorek temple. Well, is that Zufbar? Zufbar.
On,
You've
down
got more
on,
dwarves?
down on
Hello.
the Black
That's
Water.
what came into Lindsay's
Zufbar
mind,
sounds
but
right.
Alamennoyth, I've got
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah.
Yep, it is indeed
Zufbar.
Zufbar.
What's
on the Blackwater?
What's the hold that Habercorn told him about?
That was Hornhold.
Hornhold.
Yeah.
There's and that's near Visenland, was it?
Yeah.
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 There's another
In the
hold
Borderlands.
near Visenland, Hornhold, where there is actually a shrine to Sigmar. They worship him as one of their ancestor gods there out of the respect for what he did. There's also a monastery that she went to where, again, there were ancient texts relating to Galmaraz and the Runefangs, which again
Did you return
suggested
with
they
all
were-
your sketches?
which again suggested they were different. It's a monastery where
we already had
some of them can't talk, some of them can't listen. Oh, yeah, it was a whole thing. It was very hard to communicate. And she eventually got kicked out for sounding like a heretic. But
So what
But
exactly
when-
is the blade?
Well, when Birdie drew it, she did tell us what she saw. I don't know if you were there. She told me. Yeah, she did the 12-foot. She was 12
Yeah.
feet tall.
and I thought
she
she
saw
might
a
have been
vision
Ulrich.
of the northern gates, and she was wielding an axe.
So there is
It-
what?
Drove her into a blood rage.
It sounds cursed.
It does sound cursed.
And that was very much the feeling I got from my ancestor, that she felt it was cursed.
Then why would one want to touch something that could damn your own soul?
Well, I don't want to draw it. What I want to check is whether the vision I have is the same as the vision my shadowy self had. I believe it was because I perceived it, but I don't know.
It seems to draw people to the north as well.
No.
We also uncovered some.
What is it? She says
Well-
with a half smile on her face.
We also uncovered evidence to suggest that there were not
12
really
tribes
12
of
tribes of
Sigmar.
Sigmar, but there were 15.
And this is one of the missing Runefangs of the 3 missing tribes.
Well, the tribe was banished because it fell. What were the 3 missing tribes?
The Norski.
The Free King and the. And was this
Fry-
the Free King one?
The
Fry
Fry
King.
King.
Was this the Fry King one? I have got it written down here somewhere.
I hope you do, because I don't think
Somewhere
I
I
need to
do.
access my memories! Norse, the Fry King, and whom else?
Oh, the ones that the uncle.
Ungle.
Yeah, it was the uncle, wasn't it?
I think it was the uncle.
As a tribe of Sigma.
Yes.
That seems somewhat unlikely, does it not?
No, because the thing was, the 12 tribes of Sigma, historically, according to Luitpold, were the ones that fought at Blackfire Pass.
Yes,
Whereas-
I'm aware of the tale.
Whereas those 3 tribes would have been potentially not able to come to Blackfire Pass and
The
would have.
Ungols came to Blackfire Pass.
Oh, did they?
Oh, somewhat famously, they were a relieving force.
But
They
a
did not-
relieving force.
They did not join the Empire.
Exactly. So
perhaps, it was...
But the Norse were never, in any tale that I have heard,
I think
ever associated with anything but antipathy.
But as we know, the tales, they change in the telling, right?
Luitpold, did you not have a vision of dwarves fighting with humans over
Yes.
this? And the dwarves saying there were 15?
There were 15. That was the voice I heard.
15 what?
Tribes.
But 15 what? There was far more than 15 tribes. There were others. The Bretoni.
15 tribes that were commissioned. 15 swords that were commissioned.
And then the cult was like, no, there were 12. So it was like politically 3 of the tribes had been written out of history. Or if not written out of history for political reasons, written perhaps because of the machinations or
this is a lost
influence.
fact.
Well, we don't know. We
Possibly.
think it could
And
be.
that's
She
why
looks at her eyes wide.
that's why I want to touch it again to find out whether the vision, whether I have the same vision.
We did not know that the second rune, was the rune of Scalf Blackhammer. We knew the rune of Alaric the Mad, which we knew to be on the rune fangs.
And I knew that
But now you say that both of them are on the rune fangs.
one of them, which of the runes was it that I knew was a mining rune? That was what he got from his detect magic.
Alaric the Mad.
So I know that the rune of Alaric is a mining rune.
Originally.
Yeah.
Really? I've never heard such a thing. A mining
A
rune.
mining rune. That's what allows it.
The rune fangs are mining weapons.
That's what allows them to cut through inorganic material.
Inorganic material. I don't know.
Metal, stone. It cuts right through it as if it's not there. But leather,
I didn't know that either.
bone, flesh, it cuts like a normal sharp.
Indeed, inside this scabbard, it's soft leather.
Yeah.
The scabbard is lined with leather. It would have to be.
Although wood would also suffice, wouldn't it? Wood's organic.
Yes, but after a long time,
The leather would perish, surely.
well, I presume that there's some.
So you think this is a blade crafted? From what I know, the rune fangs were effectively impossible. Weapons that none others could create because it was well documented that no single item could have more than a single master rune. It's why they're called master runes. Master runes mean no more runes. The magic that is contained within them are like lodestones, and they drive away other lodestones. You can't put them together. And some of the magic held within some of them are particularly powerful. Indeed, even bringing 2 weapons too close with master runes upon them can sometimes cause sparks, energy to rise, magic to move out of control. And it is wise to keep such artifacts quite separate from each other. And only in times of great need would one ever bring multiple master runes together, because they can also bring strength. But a single artifact can't contain more than one, but you have one. There is the answer to your curse. What was done to bind them together on a single blade?
Well, it was Alaric the Mad, I think you said, that worked out how to do it.
The point is, nevertheless, potentially laid into it. Whatever was done is going to make that artifact unlike any other artifact. The same would be the case for the rune fangs. It does change my opinion of them, though.
And there is something, I don't know if it is nothing more than the...
Greta says, is anyone going to touch it? I've been sitting up here for all this time, watching you just chatting away.
I don't, one moment, Greta, please. I don't know if it's nothing more than the symbolic significance of the rune fangs and what they represent to the Empire. But since I began to have visions, since I became a seer of Sigma, when I'm in the proximity to a rune fang, I know it. I know its name, I hear its name, I see the rune. And I was drawn to this. I was drawn to where it was buried.
Well, it seems the gods work through you. She looks at it. Well, let us at least see one of the runes.
I call it Ara.
Shall I do my thing before we draw it? Or
Well, your simple touch is enough. I mean, I could touch it also.
Yes,
He
touch
says.
it.
I might be able to sense its matrix.
Oh, Elric's talked about those. Elric has talked about those.
He says,
and in the vision we heard about them.
He thought priests
there is
might
a
have
concern,
matrices.
though. If it isn't expertly made, one would presume it could not be. But the power held within it could very easily.
Touch
But-
you?
Yes.
Didn't the dwarf in the vision, didn't she say runes were different from matrices?
I can't remember. Reganda.
Yeah. I'm sure she did. I'm sure she said that the dwarfs with their runes didn't understand, and that
matrices were different to
and
make
were more
magical
efficient.
artifacts.
Yeah.
I've never touched a runic artifact. I have no idea what might be contained within.
Well, do you want to go first, or shall I?
No.
All right.
She says.
As I say, last time it flung me across the room, so maybe I'll back myself up against some wool or grain
I'll bring it to him.
and see what happens.
Your finger touches it. As it does, Paracool shudders through your mind. And it feels a little bit like you can, for the first time, feel with the whirls and the twists of your brain, as if they have somehow picked up sensation. For a brief moment, you sense your own brain within your own head, its own shape, its own connections, all of the connections, as you blink free.
That's interesting.
She looks on. Well, what did you experience?
I didn't see Helga. I heard Baracool, and then it was like I could feel my own brain.
Your brain?
Yeah, in my skull, all the lumps and bumps of it.
Greta says, slightly disappointed. I'm calling down. Was sort of half expecting you to fly.
Right, I'm going to try again. I'm going to try something different. And this time I'm going to actively try and detect artifact on it, try and see if I can glean from it.
Nothing.
The
job has already been done.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Would
you get you get
what you got before?
Yeah, you get a slight. It's a lower version of what you got before, but you can still sense it's the same.
That's
artifact,
when you got the mining artifact.
Yeah,
that's when you knew it
and
was
the
from
same
mining.
awareness comes through that this is the rune on it. That rune there is a mining rune, originally crafted to make its way through stone, to make its way through to the true ore beneath. But it had an unexpected, significant benefit. Good weapon rune.
Yeah.
As it turns out.
As it turns out.
Yep, good weapon rune. Good weapon rune. As she says, I'm interested to touch it also. She says, if no one minds.
Please.
She carefully puts forward her fingers, taps it. She twists slightly from side to side. Oh my, that is powerful. It was forged 2,500 years ago, approximately. Alaric was shot. I've never received a vision before. Not like this. I've touched magical artifacts and I've understood what they did by understanding the matrices. This is different. This is very different. I can almost see him. Or at least what he has beaten into that blade, I suppose. A part of himself. He used his blood. He used his blood for quenching it. The only way he could quench its thirst was with his own blood. He would spend days bleeding himself for the next quenching. When he was heating up the blade.
Is that why they're called rune fangs?
He used a great glowing stone. It was like sunlight, so bright when the magic was working through it. And he used this stone to place the runes. And this one was almost a failure. The second great rune was supposed to be on the other side, but he couldn't get it there. It repelled, and he was going to give up and discard this blade. But he realized he could place it below and put different runes on the other. It was so bright. shone like the sun. Quenched it not just in blood, there was also oils involved. And I think possibly Weirdstone. I think you may have used Weirdstone. I'm not certain of that, but I know the flavour of Weirdstone in the air. I know what it is like. I've been working for Weirdstone my entire life, using it, ensuring that it does not influence me beyond what we intended. My father was a master of it. I can smell it in the air. In his forge. He required a special forge, made of star metal. And he used the very bowels of the earth, because there was no forge itself hot enough to melt. I presume the star metal that this blade is made from, is it light? And for its length, yes.
For its length, yes.
Is it known where he forged them?
I have no idea where he forged them. I would have presumed. I don't know.
I'm assuming it's not something Luitpold would...
Lord Dwarves, you might get it. It's a more difficult one. How many successes? You're pretty good at it.
Fail. Fail.
No.
Oh, fucking fortune point. Oh, I've only got one.
Nah, leave it for the moment. We're going to the next session. Leave it. But I would normally expect to understand what the weapon does, and why it was constructed the way it was constructed, but all I get is this almost fiery anger. That was a unique experience, unlike anything I have felt, and it goes against my teaching. It feels more how one imagines a divine act, rather than how one imagines the empirical understanding of how an artifact has been constructed. That is what I have been trained. It's what I have taught myself to understand.
Well, if it is different from what you expect, based on your scientific understanding,
magical understanding, please.
Magical understanding.
Science is limited.
Rational, your understanding.
Yes.
Could it be that it is false and that some magic has been placed on the blade to make you think that it is from other, and it is actually...
The only answer I can provide for that is there is no answer I can provide for that.
While they're talking, Luitpold's going to sit down, cross-legged, get his bones out.
My bones!
Because he maybe can't do another detect artifact, but he can try an augury on it. You can try auguries on items, and he's never done that before.
So, what's he auguring?
He's going to attempt to augur the item. He's
Okay,
going to look at Barracool. Well, it depends what happens when I...
Oh, of course.
when I roll my test.
The results are important. As he sits down and looks at Barracool, what do the bones say, Luitpold?
The bones say a pass.
Meaning?
I interpret some signs. I know if the item is good/friendly, bad/unfriendly, or neutral, but not why.
The item is neutral.
Interesting. But is that neutral because it's good and bad, or is that neutral because it's...
The item is neutral.
Interesting.
As you look at the bones and their unique configuration, as they're discussing in the background. Yeah. This artifact is a symbol that could bring down the Empire. You can see the destruction that lies all the way through it. Everything about this can bring nothing but bloodshed and horror, because the truth that lies potentially behind it. You look at your reading, and your reading is quite clear. Should the truth of this come out, it will cause political problems. Big ones. There are those who will use this. Those who will make claims. The big one you can see is the war between Kislev and the Empire. Empire will go to war with Kislev, claiming that it's part of the Empire. Proof. The Ungals are their tribe.
Because this is the Uncle blade.
It's their tribe. The Sigmarites will be banging for it, and they believe it. But the problem is...
Liberate the Ungals from the Gospodars.
Problem is, it's a time of change. Oh, some will believe it. We're moving towards a time of change. You can see that one bone that's just teetering, refusing to fall one way or the other, sitting on the edge of it, and both ways would be bad. At the moment, it's unknown, so the result is unknown.
So I've got to keep that bad boy.
It would be worse, arguably, if it was the other way around, and the Empire was invaded by Kislev. Utterly unprepared. You can almost feel the warfare and the Empire reeling. The politics. You can almost feel half the Empire changing sides. Imperial Kislev, with its own claims, its own rights. You don't even know what it all means. You can just sense the pressure that this blade would bring to an already unknown to you until this point, but febrile situation. You are very loosely aware in the loosest of fashions that once, 1,000 years ago, Kislev invaded across the World Edge Mountains. A tribe that became Kislev, at least. They swept in, they enslaved the Ungals. That's how the Empire sometimes likes to refer to it. They certainly defeated them. And they swept against Ostermark and Ostland, which used to move right across what is modern-day Kislev. And they conquered it and set up their own area in Kislev. Largely the open plains, covered in snow and ice. The forests were almost the boundaries that became the modern borders, with some forests claimed by Kislev, some not. Somehow this blade represents an exacerbation of that tension.
But it's neutral.
It doesn't care one way or the other. Apparently it doesn't...
Fair. Fair. It's just a weapon.
It's a sword.
Yeah. Oh. We can't tell anyone about this.
Exactly what Alamennoyth... I did tell you that.
It's one thing to hear it from an elf and another thing to see it on an augury.
It wasn't Alamennoyth who said it was Greta. Greta knows war, and she told us we couldn't tell anyone about it.
Greta says, I did say, what did you see?
I mean, either the Empire going to war with Kislev, or Kislev invading the Empire.
Really? She says, oh, that's not what I thought was going to happen.
Either way will spell an end. The end. This could undo everything we're trying to do.
What exactly
but
are
you
you
couldn't
trying to
see
do?
which way it would go.
Either way was bad. If it gets out, it's bad.
Well, then we have to pick the third way. But it goes neither. We're trying to make this the end of an age, not the end of all things. They did not lie to you.
I wondered. She says, and you think that this blade will potentially be the very tool that could be used to fragment the Empire?
I
or
feel
Kislev? Or both?
my fear for this blade before was,
And of course it's found now.
that it is tied to one of the ruinous powers too closely. And what you have said has only made me worry about that more.
The sense I get from it is not that the blade itself is evil. The blade is just a blade. It's what it represents and what it will lead people to do.
If you are looking to make an impact on what you hope is not the end of times, who is your Magnus? Because that is what you require. Someone to bind everyone together. Mayhap you should be talking to the Emperor. Greta snorts.
Looks
Up
through
above.
the wall to Gerhardt's cabin. He's who I've been told to follow.
That's strictly speaking not true.
No, to follow. To be around him, to find what I need to find. To do what I need to do.
Yes.
So, who does he lead me to? I know I need to find a Magnus.
And I know she's the key to us succeeding. If only she can keep us hidden.
You do carry the weight of worlds upon your shoulders, perhaps undeservedly.
It is not undeserved, I can assure you.
She folds her arms and says, "Really? And from whence does this arrogance come? In truth."
I am the granddaughter of Venarion. The weight of the world was on his shoulders, it shall also be on mine.
You said you were 52.
I am. I am also not.
Oh, did you look at Greta? Did you not tell her?
She goes, "No, not my secret to share."
Yeah.
She says, "Well, explain."
I do not know if too many people know this secret.
Well, then it makes no difference if you tell one more.
I mean, we've saved her.
Yeah.
I am actually what I said to Julius that I was. But I have none of her memories. I am over 5,000 years old. I was once Root Weaver, who saw the end of all things, and
You thought that it would be wise to try to stave off the end of all things by not being that?
yes,
You strike me as insane.
I mean, you're not the first to say that.
Or shall I be the last?
But it actually makes sense.
And you believe yourself blessed by Sigma?
Well, yeah. Although,
What's up with Greta?
I have come to, question the source of that perhaps a little bit, given recent revelations.
I think you will understand the logic. When one is a seer and one can see all things, what does one do when one only sees the end of all things? There are no other options.
It is what I have been pursuing for the last 20 years of my life. Options. It is the whole raison d'etre of our operation. It is what we were doing, what my father was supposed to be doing before other matters, unfortunately clouded his vision.
It is as simple as that. Rootweaver had seen every option, and no option would lead to our survival.
It is said that Emperor Magnus saw the same. A seer of the Blue College, a young celestial wizard, the name Shamtek.
Yes, we spoke about it at dinner, remember?
That was the vision.
Yes.
And I believe that in that case there is an option.
And
it's
I'm
just
just simply confirming.
And
controversial.
you didn't see the vision.
Yeah. I wish I had.
But you did. Of a Greta.
She's like, yeah,
But Lucas
I
didn't.
did. She says,
Or half.
is it safe for me to come down yet? Or are
Yes,
you,
no one's
or are you
taking
intending
it.
on pulling the
No
bloody
one's
thing
going
out?
to take it
I
out.
really want to see what it looks like. I've still not seen what it looks like.
I haven't tried drawing it yet.
I don't know. You're big. There's only. You're not.
I really don't want to.
Carve everyone up.
I am wrapping it up. She's wrapping it up and putting it away.
Oh,
Yeah,
can't you
wrap
just
it up.
draw it a bit? Just pull it out. I want to see what it looks like.
I mean, to be fair, you've drawn it safely. a
I've
few
drawn it
times.
safely many times. I just what if this is the time?
This is the time. North through the
But
hole.
she-
Then I will
Blah, blah, blah,
cry
blah.
as I end you.
Yeah, but she doesn't have that
No.
fear, does she?
No.
Look,
No.
I will take it out.
Shing!
Cool test.
Stupid humans.
4 successes.
The note is perfect as the blade comes out. Perfect resonance. The blade sits there, shining in your vision. Suddenly wreathed with energies down its line.
Is that what it looked like before when it was drawn?
you've not really ever been paying that much attention.
It's always been in the thick
because
of battle,
it's
to be
always been in the
fair.
thick of battle.
It's always been shoved into one of your friends.
By another of my
Yeah.
friends. Yeah.
Panic has often been the
Fair.
measure of the day.
And actually, quite often, he's been quite far away from it.
Yeah.
And you felt it be drawn.
Mm. Yes, he heard it.
And you
On a
can
goal.
feel it being drawn this time. Again. Tonk! Tonk! That sound of a hammer.
That's fascinating, though, because that's what he gets on Sigbright Holy Ground as well.
Often. Tonk! 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 As she looks at it. Oh my, I've never seen anything of its ilk. Skretter looks down and goes, yep. Looks like Ori Drengas, just a bit thinner. She says, no, it is nothing like it. Have you ever seen that blade drawn? Well, admittedly, no, but... So how do you know? Well, look at it. It's perfect. This is what colleges are trying to do. This is what they're trying to do with their matrices. This is better. Look at it. It sings. She lifts her hand and she channels slightly. You can feel the channel as it immediately swirls off towards the blade. You can see the dark trails rising, twisting, and then it, almost like a rainbow, spirals out in the direction of the blade.
Like a rainbow.
Wait, Luitpold doesn't normally see magic.
No, not normally.
Did you say that?
Yes, she channeled magic.
All them colours.
You didn't see any of the colours. You just saw this sudden slight touch of dar hit the air, and then it just frittered into nothing.
How do I even see colours? I don't have eyes.
I didn't see any colours.
He's just sitting there, peering through his blindfold.
I saw, as it moved to the blade, it was all the colours of the rainbow.
That weapon.
Alamennoyth was like, all 15, really?
Not true.
No, I'm joking.
No. It is worth stating. Elves see an equivalent of about 20 colours.
In the rainbow?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just because
like-
you've got a much
As
wider
20.
spectrum.
Yeah. All 20.
Sure. I didn't see that
Greta
many, but I ain't
says,
got eyes.
Fuck
So.
you. From above. As she goes, did you see what it did?
It sucked in the magic?
It did more than that, it used it. It fuels itself with magic. Which means it's going to grow more powerful with each passing month, if you are correct in your estimations that the end times are coming. 25-25, that weapon will be unlike anything that this world has seen. Possibly all of them will, who can say? Did you see what it did? It broke apart my magic and extracted it. If you place that in a machine, or if you could place that, I could fuel 100 wizards.
Could it, Rugander went north to Middenheim.
To Middenheim, and apparently she's there.
Well, perhaps she could understand it if dwarves do not. She will still be on the same path.
It is impossible to extract I don't think you quite understand how fundamental this is. It is impossible to extract the winds in the way that weapon just has. To cleanly extract them. It just split it apart as if it was nothing. This is not...
So did she I could see she channeled Dar.
Yes.
And from what he said and what she's saying,
He
it
just
then
saw the
split
rainbow
it,
split
but
up,
it split
and
the
then
Dar.
it just spiraled
So
into
it
the blade.
cleaned the Dar. It split it
Immediately.
apart.
It didn't clean it. Dar is nothing more than magic.
It
Very
split it
powerful
apart.
magic that if you're not careful will corrupt because it's so powerful. Imagine a fire. You don't think fire is corrupting. If you stick your hand in a fire, you melt. Your skin burns, it crisps. That doesn't mean that the fire is evil. The fire is hot. Dar is exactly the same. It is exceedingly powerful. I channeled an exceptionally small amount. And the amount of magic that came out of it, that was enough to fuel an I could easily have cast a purple sun with the amount of magic that came out, that tiny amount. I am quite convinced that I could fuel all of the wizards in the Empire with that if I was at my peak.
So,
Just by its presence, assuming that this is what it does.
It's like
What?
something related. It's like the vortex you were talking about.
I suppose that is a good metaphor. For the vortex does the same. It takes magic, it
Yes.
splits it up into its component parts, and then channels it to the vortex, and then dissipates it into nothing. I don't know how it works, but it does something like that.
This is tickling at Alamennoyth's memory, so she thinks that the waste shards that come from the waystones, the waystones have something to do with that
Yes.
magical vortex.
She's aware that they have something to do with it.
Yes, the waystones have something to do with the magical vortex. It's constructed somehow from all the...
I've investigated many of the orgums,
Yes.
the old orgum stones, and some of those have old elven runes. Teclis, when he formed the colleges of magic, he showed the old orgum stones to many of the earliest wizards. I've been told about that.
I think they have something to do with the magic. This vortex flows through those lines that the stones connect.
The other way around. Those stones connect to the vortex, and those stones split the magic.
To allow it to drain.
Yes. And stop the most powerful magics in the world. The most powerful magic is what I was using. That is magic that is hard, very hard to muster, to use. It takes great intent and study, but the world itself rejects it because I was taught of the vortex. Everything around us is powered towards disrupting it. It takes time to learn how to get around that, how to properly take the flows that are moving through the world and crunch them together to form what it should be, true magic. Don't think of Dar as anything other than exactly what it is, true magic. It is magic. The winds are fragmented parts of them. They're split segments. They're weak, exceedingly weak. But you should not be able to do that with Dar. You just should not be able to do it. It is not how it works.
well, if we could get this into the hands of
The enemy, and then we're in trouble.
Well, yeah, we need to not get into the hands of the enemy then, but I was thinking more.
I wonder if the other Runefangs are also capable of doing this. It would not surprise me if no one knew, simply because of the very nature of Dar and...
Who's going to channel Dar around a Runefang?
Well, other than to throw spells at whomever's wearing it, none. Well, it does make one wonder why...
What are the two runes on the other side of the blade?
Two other runes, don't know them.
No, but
There are two other runes.
but what do they look like? Do they?
I'll give you...
She doesn't know them either, I presume. Right. Fine.
And I presume Lord Dwarfs wouldn't let me.
No,
because
because
I've looked
you
at
need
them.
lore runes for that. Yeah, different and lore. Lord Dwarfs will give you dwarf stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
And the Mastery of Alexaman's so famous that you got that.
Yes.
Well, I mean, he got it from his vision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean.
And yeah, she doesn't know those runes
He's been
either.
smacked in the forehead by it.
Well, I've never been. I've been near another Runefang, but it wasn't drawn, and certainly no one was channeling Dar.
Perhaps it only works if you're very close to it.
Or perhaps this is Unyielding Wall. Gory Drengas is what? Beast Slayer, did you say?
Beast Slayer.
Perhaps Unyielding Wall is somehow... Perhaps they all do something.
So perhaps it resists magic?
Perhaps. She rubs her eyes. I'm still a little shaken by this. I'm trying to explain to you what I have perceived and its ramifications. If I were to do that in Altdorf with any great strength, let us say, for example, that one were to place that blade within a stone in the center of Altdorf, and I were to channel a strong, twisting... If I channeled a significant flow of Dar and it were to do the same thing, there would be enough magic in the air in Altdorf to fuel all of the wizards there, including the enemy wizards, of course. But with care and practice, you would presumably be able to direct it. It moves straight towards that blade, which means you could have the wizards between blade and channeler. The Light College would. I cannot believe they would not know of this already. If any of the colleges would know, it would be them. Their entire process is driven around trying to gather enough Heish. But I could see the Heish, it was so powerful there. I never see Heish.
I could see the magic, and I can't normally see magic.
You didn't see a thing. You literally just saw the flash of Dar, and that was it.
Not even the Ulgu.
Nope.
I didn't even see the Ulgu.
Perhaps because you were wielding the blade.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Maybe you should put it away.
Mm.
It draws attention.
Willpower test. Oh, cool. You get fancies when you draw one of these.
Crit.
Oh, superb. Not a problem at all. As you
It's just
slide it in.
so cool.
So cool.
Super cool.
Click!
Wrap it up.
As tension in the air drops. Everybody was tense, holding muscles, their teeth more clenched, and they realize their shoulders pulled in, their bodies just, and as it goes, it just all relaxes. Did you feel the release of his ear?
Was that what it was?
And Zia, when you're in an area of high concentration, can tense the muscles. It can actually cause muscles to twitch if there's too much of it. It's a way of learning. You feel the prickle at the back of your neck and a slight fluttering in the stomach as your muscles begin to tense. I'm not very good with Zia, but you can definitely sense it.
I'm fucking blocking that nugget away.
No, basically, he's just described
I
the
know.
talent Sixth Sense. You already have that. Literally just described.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
No, you
but-
have.
Yeah. It's almost like his ear can see the future.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, normally when I feel that, it's because someone's trying to kill me.
Azir is the wind of what is to come. Wind of bad tidings, perhaps.
So,
Um,
I'm so sorry about your castle.
so am I. It was my life. We were so close. The Empire has lost much more than she'll ever know. Much more.
But we kept you alive. And we need to find a way to keep you alive.
Yes, well,
Do you think there might be a home for you in the Wizards Guild in Middenheim?
Wizards Guild. I don't even know the Wizards Guild.
Well, exactly. They're separate to the colleges, right?
No, I don't think so. Not completely.
If they're allowing... I keep forgetting her name. The dwarf.
Yeah, but that was 200 years ago.
But if she's still there and still doing her experiments...
We shall see. I take it nothing is salvageable. You do not.
I do not what.
Well, you have the knowledge of what was lost, but...
We never discussed what was stolen.
Can I get a quick... Would Lore Middenheim let me know anything about the Wizards Guild?
Yes, it would. Absolutely would.
Yeah.
Gold College and Celestial College. How many successes?
4.
4. Good. Gold College and Celestial College. You're not aware if there are others. There might be, but you've never seen them. You've seen lots of Celestials and lots of golds kicking around town. You know that they are fiercely independent while simultaneously definitely tied to the colleges of magic.
So they are tight.
But fiercely
Also
independent
independent.
as well. They have an older remit, a remit that extends for hundreds of years, not just 200.
Yeah, that's right. They existed before Magnus because they sent a
Indeed.
delegation.
That's because Ulrich has literally no problem with magic at all. None. Zippo.
Yeah.
It's a Sigmarite issue.
So, I mean, look, I don't know the details of the inner workings of the Wizards Guild, but I know that they predate the colleges. The only ones I ever saw were blues and golds. It doesn't mean there aren't others, but those are the only ones I saw. they're connected to the colleges, but they are independent. Like, fiercely independent.
My college is Amethyst.
Oh.
So they may have some of those, they may not. I don't know.
That's why I want to go to Argol. I want to secure myself another license from my master. He will not be at all pleased with me. I might have to shave my head. I might have to shave. There are rituals that I will need to attend to. Silent rituals. And I've lost my grimoire as well, which will, if anything, make me even less happy.
Can't help with the grimoire, but I've got a razor.
I'd rather not have to cut my hair. I'd rather not have to collect another license, but it's going to be the only way that I will be able to. There are those who can detect these things, and when I don't have a license,
Mm-hmm.
will be an excuse, like those people. Never thanked you for saving me. Thank you.
And hopefully when we get there, but much like when we fled Kemperbad, like, I can hopefully help us find a safe path through whatever troubles are in Altdorf.
It is the least we could do to save you after, unaware to us, bringing that trouble to your door.
Yeah.
We did not know there were creatures that wanted to steal what you had.
Well, you couldn't know that they were mostly cultists. You couldn't know that it wasn't anything but what it appeared to be. But that was the point. It's why it was the way it was. It's how we managed to capture, secure, and pacify many threats, which in turn became our next experiments.
So, in the interest of full disclosure,
Yes.
in terms of what was stolen, while we were in the temple, I noticed that there were a few books there. Most of them had molded and rotted, but there were a few that were sacred to Sigmar. I could feel the holy presence. I have those. I'm very happy to return them, though I would appreciate your permission to study them first. They were waterlogged, so I haven't opened
Why
them
not
yet.
add them to the library in the corner? The corner. Like a quarter of the hold is filled with books.
Oh my
stacked in
god,
it.
Leopold's like owning up to the books, but not mentioning that we literally found the fucking rune fang on our land.
It's a good balance.
I'm not lying!
Alamennoyth is just...
Yeah, blank face.
Again, when Leopold wants to, he's a
You
very
find
good
things that
actor.
are lost,
I find
including
things
rune
that are
fangs.
lost,
Yeah,
including
including
rune
rune fangs. Quite.
And the gods led us to that. Whereas he went looking for the holy
Yeah.
books. So, you know.
I don't know what is going to be my route forward through this.
You would be well to stay with us.
You may have suggested that I go to Sylvania. Because I would be welcome there. I did not like what that suggested. And I did not agree. He's quite convinced that I am going to find myself dead on the end of a pyre, and it seems that he may have been accurate if not for your intervention.
Well, we have managed to keep a number of people off pyres or out of the water. And I do believe that if your enemies are scrying for you and looking for you, you will be safer with me. For I am somewhat protected from scrying.
He says, I can't imagine anyone will be looking for me. I hope not, at least. That would suggest things have gone very poorly. Magic swords. Extraordinary magical weapons. The end of the world. A conversation with an elf. I was young, 23. And she had witnessed the end of the world, as she put it. Her direct translation, the end times, ran as something or another, which is when you said whatever it was you said earlier.
Ranadandra.
Yes, that. It had similar tones, but a direct translation, the end times. She'd said that she'd seen the end times 4 times. And I said, what does that mean? She said, to me at least, when magic grows so powerful that the air itself bleeds. And you can hear the demons on the wind, and they manifest in every dark recess and corner. And she had fought her way through 4 of them.
That sounds like where I was trapped.
So I said to her, at that point at least, I consider myself somewhat of a student of the potential of another end times. And she simply laughed at me. And she said, what do you mean another one? They are as certain as sunrise, as predictable as Morsley. To which I said, so not at all. And she laughed. No, Morsley is full. Twice a year, with certainty. Morsley was one of the more predictable phenomena of this world, as are the end times. I did not like the connotations of that, because Morsley was not necessarily only full twice a year.
No, we have first-hand experience of that.
And I said as much. And she said, well, quite. As predictable as Morsley. And I said, when is the next one coming then? And she looked at me. She said, Rootweaver told me that I will be dead in the year 2521. And I will be facing off a horde that is so large that the horizon itself cannot contain it. And I said, well, at least you'll die heroically. I thought it witty. She did not appreciate it. She said she was preparing for it, night and day.
What was her name?
That is the thing, I cannot remember. Which does not surprise me. Elves. Besides, I was not very good at magic at that early point of my life. She'd almost certainly cast a spell of some sort. She had deigned to talk to me for whatever reason, and then deigned to move on. But I was left with enough memory. It was a she. Her hair was dark auburn, down almost to the small of her knees at the back. Tied in braids, and left loose from about her buttocks downwards. Green tattoos. Blithe look upon her face, I remember that. Beyond that, little else. I couldn't tell you about her eyes, her height even. It's almost like she's a dream. But my life has been a collection of individuals who all claim that end times are coming for one reason or another. Your exclamations and proclamations and somewhat dubious sounding excuses for your somewhat destructive actions were not exactly surprising. Most of them are lying. Most of them are deluded. And I am growing increasingly convinced that you are not amongst those. I wasn't out of Wittgenstein for long before I was captured. But in the time between being captured and leaving, I saw 17 people be burned. 17. Just burning in pyres. Some of them had already been burnt right down to the ashes, but others were sitting screaming as I passed. They are killing the people most likely to save them. That is your cult, sir.
I know.
They are killing those who are most likely to be able to survive the incoming terror. They are culling their strongest members. Sign of the end times is the dark gods winning. Getting what they want. And sadly, if you are looking for anywhere where the influence most certainly does lie, is your own cult, sir. I have killed, personally, over 50 of your cult. And they were not just of your cult. 50. And I think that is not an inconsequential number. One Ulrican. One. Just one Ryan. She had lost her soul.
Was Sigrid Ulrican?
No.
No.
She was alive. She may have been once. Her husband, he was the reason for her downfall. He was a cultist from Hockland originally. He had a willpower unlike any I'd ever seen, quite immune to the interrogations that were placed upon him, and the magic that was laced across his soul did nothing to him. Such was his devotion to the blood god. So he was given to my men. Not because we wished him to be tortured any more than he already was, but to draw her out. My men know that he could not die, because once he was dead, his soul would pass on and he would become a demon, which is what has occurred. You can't give them their freedom. You have to ensure that they stay alive one way, and he refused to eat. He would eat nothing. He would just let himself waste away, listening to the whispers. If you allowed his hands free, he would tear at his own blood to let it flow. The first thing we did was cut off his hands. Stop him hurting himself to the degree that he was. You could say he was suicidal, but he wasn't. He didn't want his own death. He wasn't craving death. He was just craving the blood. He had lost himself almost entirely. He knew he was lost, that he had lost, and it was the only way he could reclaim his honor. He spoke about that for some time. His honor, how important it was to him. And that is the man that she was after, to free. She couldn't have done anything. He was effectively dead anyway. Unless she had some unexpected skill in art and necromancy, pulling the pieces together, which one feels very unlikely. He was a trap. A trap that sprung, unfortunately, in this instance. Greta says, I'm bored, and it's late. She says, it's really late,
Right.
and it's actually getting really cold and dark out here, and this is getting melancholy.
Are you scared, Greta?
Little
Is it a bit scary out there?
I'm being honest here. A little bit. I mean,
It's quite warm and cozy down here.
I'm not going down there. That's the way. I mean, you've wrapped it up. It's not so bad
It's where the travesty was. You're right.
now. And she says, sorry, did I keep you all awake?
No, not at all.
No.
It was fascinating. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, if I'm honest, I'm not looking forward to going to sleep tonight, but
I could help.
I think I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
I may talk to you tomorrow night, depending what happens. But I think I need to know.
It might be worth also speaking to the doctor. She has an extensive selection of herbs, some of which may be able to knock you out completely. I don't have enough knowledge of most of those, but I presume that she does. And in combination with a spell...
You don't sleep much, do you?
No, I do not.
It might be a good idea keeping watch on me, make sure I don't sleepwalk.
Yes,
Because if I
that's a
do
good idea.
sleepwalk, it might not be me.
I will keep a watch.
Hopefully that won't happen, but, we're in uncharted waters.
You're very strong. I think we should tie you up.
All right.
Tie you to your hammock. Even if it's just...
Greta says, no, don't be ridiculous. It breaks one of those, and all he needs to do is pull the hammock off, and suddenly he's free with a big hammock kite behind him. No.
What?
Tie him up to what the hammock itself is tied to. Don't be ridiculous, tie him to the hammock.
It's just to slow him down so I can get a hold of him.
I think your first statement betrays how ridiculous a plan that is. He's very large.
Fine.
I mean, he is. Look at him.
All right, but comfortably so he can at least go to sleep.
Well, yes, of course. His wrists, his ankles. Ankles up to the wall. Wrists up to the bum behind.
I mean, that doesn't sound very comfortable.
Well, you can keep it loose. It's only designed to stop you from attacking anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You can still move a good 3 or 4 feet. That would be fine. As long as you don't reach anyone of consequence.
Yes, let's do it right now. We're tying you up. 3 ladies.
I mean,
You'll never get a better offer.
I've had worse nights.
Certainly a way to end our next little stream.
Interestingly, ladies, the Order of the Silver Flame don't take a vow. A lot of people know that.
Just so you're clear on that one. Yeah. So we can end with Alamennoyth, Greta, and Wittgenstein herself tying up Luitpold's wrists, his ankles, up to the hoops where the hammock itself had been tied into his cabin, to see whether he will, during the course of his sleep, have sleepwalky times. And we'll find out. Let's start our next episode.